I feel an urgent need to share my story, a warning born from a profound near-death experience that changed my life forever. In 2024, events of great significance will unfold, and I've been entrusted with a mission to share what I've seen. This is not just my story, but a call to reflection, preparation, and discernment. I want to connect with you on a deeper level, inviting you to reflect on what you've experienced, heard, or felt in your own life. Have you ever faced a moment that shifted your perspective entirely? If so, I encourage you to share in the comments and join this conversation with respect and openness. Together, we can explore the meaning behind these experiences and the truths they reveal. My name is Elias Monroe, and I'm a 54-year-old man whose life was forever changed by loss, regret, and an extraordinary encounter. In my earlier years, I was known for my strength and success as a rugby player. My life revolved around the game, my victories, and the tangible achievements that came with them. For much of my life, I placed my faith solely in reason and science. I believed only in what was tangible and provable, dismissing anything that seemed vague or unmeasurable. The loss of my son, Atticus, is a wound that has never fully healed. He was just 7 years old when he fell ill. I brushed it off as a mild fever and chose to continue with my rugby game, thinking I could handle everything. I assured my wife, Sarah, that everything would be fine and that I would be home soon. The guilt and regret I felt after Atticus's passing seeped into every part of my life. I couldn't continue my career as a rugby player, as all the victories and fame seemed meaningless without my son. The pain from that loss overshadowed everything I had once found important. My relationship with Sarah also suffered. We were both consumed by grief, and despite living under the same roof, we became emotionally distant. The connection we once had faded, not due to a lack of love, but because we were each trapped in our own sorrow, unable to share it with each other. The death of Atticus shattered not just my career, but the foundation of my family as well. I withdrew from everyone, isolating myself from the world. I couldn't escape the constant guilt of not being there for him when he needed me most. In the wake of Atticus's death, I lost the sense of purpose that had once driven me. My career as a rugby player, the victories, the fame, it all felt meaningless. On October 6, 2023, everything changed for me. I had reached a point where life felt like an endless cycle of pain and numbness. I decided to do something simple, fix the roof of our house, a task I had put off for far too long. It seemed trivial at the time, just a way to keep myself occupied, but that decision led to an event I never saw coming. As I stood on the roof, one misstep caused me to slip and fall. The shock of hitting the ground was immediate, and everything around me went black. It was as if the world had faded away, leaving nothing but darkness and silence. There was no pain, no fear, just a profound emptiness. And then, from the depths of that darkness, a faint light began to appear, drawing me in, something I had never felt before, something beyond the ordinary. That moment would be the beginning of a transformation that would change my life forever. The moment I fell from the rooftop, everything shifted. The shock of the fall was instant, and then there was only darkness, absolute and complete. It was as though time and space no longer existed, and I was suspended in an endless void. I couldn't feel my body, nor did I hear a sound. There was only an oppressive silence that consumed everything. It felt as if I had vanished from the world entirely, trapped in a place where nothing mattered and nothing existed. In this deep, empty darkness, I had no sense of direction, no understanding of where I was. I couldn't comprehend the experience fully, but I knew that I was completely alone in this unfamiliar, formless realm. As I drifted in the aftermath of my fall, An overwhelming silence enveloped me. There were no sounds, no voices, no movements, just an eerie stillness that seemed to stretch on forever. It felt as if I was suspended in a void, a place where nothing existed but emptiness. There was no sense of time, no way of measuring how long I had been in this space. I couldn't even tell if I was still alive or if I had passed on. All I knew was that I was lost in a realm that felt distant from everything I had known, trapped in a profound silence that left me feeling detached from everything around me. The void was all-encompassing, and in that moment, I felt completely insignificant, swallowed by the nothingness. Amidst the overwhelming darkness, a faint light slowly appeared before me. It wasn't blinding or harsh, but soft and gentle, like a mist that gradually grew stronger as I felt drawn toward it. This light was unlike anything I had ever seen. It held a warmth, a peace, and a comfort that began to wash over me. As I moved closer to it, the light enveloped me, easing the weight of the despair that had gripped my heart. It wasn't just light. It felt like something more, like a presence, guiding me, soothing me, and pulling me towards something greater than myself. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I wasn't alone. The light that surrounded me was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It wasn't the harsh glare of a spotlight or the blinding brightness of the sun. It was soft, warm, and translucent, as if it were made from the very essence of dawn itself. It wasn't just a physical light. It felt alive, full of peace and compassion. It seemed to touch every part of me, melting away the pain, the guilt, and the sorrow that had defined my existence for so long. The warmth was gentle, like an embrace, and it carried a sense of tranquility that I couldn't fully explain. There was no fear in it, only a profound sense of belonging and comfort. As I moved closer, the light grew brighter, but never in a way that overwhelmed me. It simply illuminated everything within me, showing me the truth, the peace I had been yearning for. As I stood in the presence of that light, I felt something inside me shift, something deep and profound. The weight of my past, the regret, the pain of losing Atticus, seemed to dissolve in that moment. I was no longer burdened by guilt or fear. There was no shame, no sense of inadequacy. The light seemed to embrace all of me, transforming everything I had carried for years into something lighter, more peaceful. It wasn't just the absence of pain, it was the presence of something far greater, peace, love, and understanding. I no longer felt lost or isolated. In that light, I felt whole, as if I had returned to a place where I truly belonged, where everything made sense. The sorrow I had once known was replaced by a peace that filled my entire being, and I knew, in that moment, that I had been forgiven, healed, and transformed. As I stood in the light, I began to hear faint sounds around me, gentle whispers that felt more like soothing reassurances than words. They weren't clearly music or speech, but they conveyed a sense of comfort, telling me I wasn't alone. It was as though the very atmosphere was speaking to me, offering quiet support, a message of peace and belonging. The warmth of the light, combined with the calming sounds, gave me the overwhelming sense that I had finally arrived home, like I had found the place I was always meant to be. There was no fear, no anxiety, just an unspoken understanding that this was where I belonged, where I had always been meant to return. It felt like a reunion with something I had lost long ago, and I felt deeply at peace for the first time in years. As I stood in the light, a figure began to emerge from the mist, gradually becoming clearer. My heart tightened as I realized it was Atticus, my son. But he wasn't the frail, sickly 7-year-old boy I had lost. Instead, he stood before me, radiant and perfect, free from pain and age, as though he had been reborn in a flawless form. He was now strong, serene, and angelic, no longer burdened by the illness that had taken him from me. Overcome with emotion, I rushed to him, unable to contain the tears that flowed as I hugged him tightly. In that moment, I whispered apologies, unable to forgive myself for not being there for him when he needed me most. But Atticus, with a gentle smile and a soft voice, assured me that he wasn't angry. He told me he was at peace, free from all the hurt and sadness. His forgiveness and love overwhelmed me, and I knew that our bond, though tested by pain and loss, was unbroken. In the brilliant light, my eyes opened to see Jesus standing before me, closer than I had ever imagined. His presence was powerful and sacred, radiating infinite love and acceptance. His eyes held a depth of compassion that erased every doubt and fear I had ever carried. I felt a wave of love pour into my soul, washing away all my confusion and pain. Overcome with awe, I collapsed to my knees, not out of weakness, but in reverence for the divine truth I was witnessing. Jesus reached out to comfort me, and in that moment, he spoke, entrusting me with a sacred mission. He revealed that there were crucial events ahead in 2025, ones that would change the world, and he charged me with the responsibility to share this warning. Though I felt unworthy, I understood that this was no longer just a personal journey, but a calling to help others prepare for what was to come. I found myself in a city that resembled New York, bustling with lights and life, yet there was an undeniable unease in the air. The scene felt off, like a dream, where everything appeared familiar but was distorted. In the midst of the city, I saw a creature bathed in bright light, initially seeming angelic. However, as I looked closer, I realized something was wrong. The creature's eyes were lifeless, cold, and devoid of emotion, and it was leading people toward a false promise. The creature called out, claiming to be the light, the one who would bring true happiness, but those drawn to it began to lose themselves. They became weak, drained, and emotionally numb, like puppets controlled by an invisible force. As the people followed, they didn't realize they were being deceived. This light wasn't divine. What I was witnessing was the great deception, a force that would sow confusion and lead people astray, making them lose their faith and connection to the truth. Jesus, standing beside me, confirmed this truth, urging me to share the warning with the world. He emphasized that not all light is from him and that we must discern between the true and the false, for the consequences of ignorance would be grave. As I stood beside Jesus, he spoke to me with a voice full of authority and compassion. He warned me that the light I had witnessed was not the true light, but a deception. He explained that many people would be led astray, mistaking false promises for the real truth. Jesus emphasized the importance of discerning between true light and falsehood, as failing to do so would result in spiritual devastation. He entrusted me with a sacred mission, to share this message with the world. I was to warn others that not all lights are from him and that they must be vigilant in recognizing the difference. Jesus' warning was clear. This was not just a personal revelation, but a global call to prepare for what was to come.